Lake Crescent is more than just a natural wonder in Washington state. It's home of the legendary Lady of the Lake. From the Hall of Mosses in the Hoh Rainforest to the Claylock Tree of Life that sits out on the Pacific coast, the westernmost part of Washington state offers more than just breathtaking hikes and camping. No such wonder beats the second largest lake in the state of Washington, Lake Crescent. At over 600 feet deep and 12 miles wide, Lake Crescent sits as one of the most gorgeous, expansive lakes the Evergreen State has to offer. But beauty always isn't innocent. Despite its majestic nature, Lake Crescent has a hauntingly dark past. The Lady of the Lake is a true story and one of the more enduring legends on the Olympic Peninsula. This tale of murder, a body that turned to soap, and the hunt for a killer has absorbed readers and storytellers for generations. The story begins in the summer of 1940, when a woman's body floated to the surface of Lake Crescent in the Olympic National Park. The woman was wrapped in blankets and hogtied with heavy rope. She had been strangled to death. The case was especially macabre because of the condition of the body. The woman's face was unrecognizable, but her body had not decomposed. In a bizarre chemical transformation, the flesh had turned to a soap-like substance that could be scooped away like putty. The public's imagination was caught by the grisly discovery, and the murdered woman became known as the Lady of the Lake. It was a fitting appellation for a mystery woman who had emerged from Lake Crescent, a cold, deep lake that had a reputation for never giving up its dead. The Lady of the Lake was Hallie Latham Illingworth, a Port Angeles waitress who was married to Montgomery Monty Illingworth, a beer truck driver and a known ladies' man. Hallie had been missing since shortly before Christmas in 1937. Hallie arrived on the Olympic Peninsula about 3 years earlier after 2 failed marriages. She was born on January 8, 1901, to a hard-working farm couple in Greenville, Kentucky. As a young adult, Hallie repeatedly moved west, searching for a better life. She wound up working at the Lake Crescent Tavern, now known as Lake Crescent Lodge, where she met Monty, who became her third husband on June 16, 1936. The two had a volatile marriage. 5 months into their marriage, the couple got into a fight that was so fierce the police were called to break it up. Hallie showed up for work at a Port Angeles restaurant with bruises on her face and arms. Sometimes she came to work with black eyes. Then the holidays approached in 1937. Hallie disappeared. After the night and morning of December 21st and 22nd, no one saw Hallie again. Monty told friends that his wife had run off with another man, but as the months went by, even Hallie's close-knit family had no word from her. Monty moved to California with a woman he met in Port Angeles, a woman whom, reportedly, he was seeing romantically before Hallie's disappearance. And then on July 6, 1940, almost 3 years after Hallie disappeared, 2 fishermen spotted the body of a woman, the Lady of the Lake, floating on the surface of Lake Crescent. The body was taken into Port Angeles, where a young medical student examined the body. He noted that the upper part of her face, her upper lip, and her nose were gone. Because her hands had been exposed, the tips of the fingers were gone. There was no way to get any fingerprints and no way to tell what the woman looked like. And then there was the unusual state of the corpse. The dead woman's flesh had turned to something like ivory soap. The medical student described the condition as saponification. The soap-like condition resulted from the minerals in the lake interacting with the fats in the woman's body. The lake's near freezing temperatures had virtually refrigerated the corpse for years. A visual inspection of the body and subsequent autopsy showed that the woman had met with a violent death. Her neck was bruised and discolored, and her chest showed evidence of extensive hemorrhaging. She had been beaten and strangled. Though there was little with which to make an identification, the body had a distinctive upper dental plate. That proved to be the clue that led to her killer. Authorities eventually identified the woman as Hallie Illingworth, thanks to an alert South Dakota dentist who identified the dental plate as one he had made for her years before. Investigators closed in on Monty, now living in Long Beach, California. On October 26, 1941, Monty was arrested and taken into custody by Los Angeles Sheriff's deputies. Not long after, he was charged with murder. Monty was brought back to Port Angeles and put on trial for Hallie's murder in Clown County Superior Court. The trial began on February 24, 1942, and was so sensational that it competed with news from the fronts of World War II. Trial developments were splashed daily across the front pages of all local newspapers. Spectators arrived early to the courthouse. Homemakers, teenagers, and curiosity seekers converged in the courtroom and at times during the 9-day trial spilled out into the hallways. Monty's defense was that the dead woman wasn't Hallie, and he swore that she was alive when he last saw her. But the old dentist from South Dakota was a credible witness, and he insisted the dental plate found on the murdered woman belonged to Hallie and was one he had made. Moreover, Hallie's friends identified the clothes worn by the dead woman as belonging to her. The key evidence against Monty was the rope he used to tie her up before she was dropped into Lake Crescent. Monty had borrowed 50 feet of rope from a storekeeper at the lake, and the store still had remnants from the rope. The fibers matched. It took jurors 4 hours to reach a verdict. On March 5, 1942, the jury found Monty guilty of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment in the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Monty served 9 years in prison and was paroled in 1951. He died on November 5, 1974, in Los Alamitos, California. A criminologist with the Washington State Attorney General's office who helped investigate the murder maintained that Monty tried to conceal the crime by placing his wife's lifeless body in the trunk of his car and driving to Lake Crescent. Monty then stopped in the vicinity of the present-day log cabin resort, where he wrapped his wife's body in blankets and tied the bundle with rope. Monty put Hallie's body in a rowboat, attached weights to the bundle, and rowed into deep water. Then he dropped the bundle into dark water. Rumors circulated during the murder investigation that Monty didn't act alone, but no one other than Monty was charged with the crime.